The reason it's so difficult for you to buy a property is because we live in an age of high consumerism. That's what economist John Luce says on my latest YouTube video. You said the housing market is in competition with the intense consumer market.
Yes, yes.
Please explain that for us.
So this is, we talk about housing affordability that's deteriorated. Globally, you hear these reports, Gen Z will struggle to get onto the housing ladder and and millennials even, and it's become too inaffordable. Now look, there's no doubt if you take South Africa as a whole and you take the poor as well, there's a lot of people who don't have jobs and they can't afford a house and they live in informal settlements, sadly. But let's talk about the people who do have jobs, and some of them are even graduates, and they're saying, "Ooh, they're going to struggle to get onto the housing ladder." What's the problem here? The problem is not so much house prices that have inflated radically over the past decade and a half or so. It's actually something else. Okay, firstly, there is a problem with rates and tariffs related to housing. Electricity has inflated far more than income, as have municipal rates, the other utilities. That's a challenge. The operating cost side of housing, that's become less affordable.
Yes.
Then there's another thing, and that is that there's this proliferation of consumer goods and services. Now, I am 60 years old. I remember the 70s as a small kid. My dad was a lecturer at university. He bought a house he built a house in the suburb, bought a stand, built a house. And it was like, how could he afford that? And now these days, varsity lecturers can't. Okay, I don't know how the real incomes of varsity lecturers have changed. Then that might have, if you adjust for inflation over those times.
Yeah.
But the one thing is, in those days, there was nothing to buy. Just about. I remember the house clearly. There was furniture, a few pieces of furniture. In the kitchen, there was a kettle, a toaster, and a stove. There wasn't a TV to buy. There weren't laptops to buy. There weren't cell phone contracts. There weren't data subscriptions. There weren't apps to subscribe to. There weren't cappuccino shops on every corner.
I had one this morning.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it was hard done by. That was a privileged South African family. Let's call it what it was, who didn't have much else to buy. So there was a lot more spending power available for property, a bigger portion, I think.